to start off, I'm gonna leave about 3, 2, 3, however long that is, I don't know. I wrap around like that and then push through to make a little slip knot sort of thing. And pull tight, but not too tight. You want it to be able to slide pretty easily. And then we're gonna take the long tail and hold that up here, and I pinch the short tail in these hands just to stabilize it. And we're gonna chain 13. So make an X, wrap around, and then flip so that you can pull through nicely. That's 1, 2, 3, now we've got 13, and you want this to be flat, and you're gonna work around one of the edges first. So we're gonna go into this next hole, because that's inside right there, and we're gonna do a single crochet. So we'll go in, wrap around, pull through, and now you have 2 stitches on your hook, and you're gonna pull through both. And we're gonna do this to the end. Okay, now we're at the last stitch, and we're going to make 2 in here. So we're gonna do a single crochet like we just did. And then to make 2, we're gonna go back in that hole and do another single crochet. And then you go back in that hole one more time and make 1 more single crochet. Now we're going to turn to the other side of the chain, and we're going to do essentially the same thing. So we're going to pick up this little thing right here. It's kind of hidden, but it's the one that goes directly into that knot. So right there, push through, and then make a single crochet. And then we're gonna go into this one here, and you're just going through one side of the V right now. and then we're going into this stitch right here before the end and gonna do a single crochet, and then you're gonna go into this little wonky stitch that's at the end that doesn't really seem like a stitch, and we're going to make 2 stitches. So you're gonna go in and do a regular single crochet into that stitch, and then you're gonna go back in and do another single crochet in the same hole, and then you're gonna do it one more time in the same hole, just like we did last time. Now we're going to wrap around. We're gonna go into this stitch right here, and we're gonna pick up both sides of the V. So this side and that side. And we're gonna do this for all of our single crochets from here on out. So now we're in both sides of the V, and we're going to do single crochets until we reach the curve on this side. Okay. So now we've reached the curve, and I always go from the point of the curve. So we're going to make 1 in 3 stitches. So this is the top. We'll go, this is the 3rd one, 2nd one, and then this one that I just put a stitch in is going to be the 1st one that we make 2 in. So I just made a single crochet in that, and I'm going to stick my needle back in that same hole and make 1 more. And then in this second one, we're gonna make 2. And then number 3 right here. And then 1 more in that same hole. Just like that. And now we're going to turn and work on this side until we get to that point. So this will be the 3rd, 2nd, 1st. So we're gonna go to this one right here. Alright, now we've reached those 3 stitches that we're going to make 1 in. So I'm going to do a single crochet and then stick right back into that same hole, make 1, go into the 2nd one, make a single crochet, and then stick right back into that same hole, and then 1 more, sticks back into that same hole. There we go. And now we're going to work around to, this will be the last stitch that we make 1 in, 2nd, 1st. So we're going to work to that stitch right there. right, we've reached those 3 stitches that we're going to make one in. So we're going to go in that same hole, and go in the second one, and then go back in, and then last one, single crochet, and then go back in that hole and make one. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to go to this will be our 3rd stitch right here, 2, 1. So we're going to crochet to this stitch, and then we'll start making 3 right here. Right, now we're going to make 3. So single crochet, go back into that same hole, make 1, go into the next stitch, single crochet, go back into the same hole, make 1, and then last stitch, single crochet, go back into the same hole, make 1. Alrighty, last round of making stitches on each side. You can always tell that you're at the beginning of a round if you're on the side that doesn't have this tail. So if you're on the curve with the tail, you know that you're halfway through your round. And then on this side without it, it'll be at the beginning of a round. So we're going to go and make 3 stitches on this side, 3 stitches on this side, and then we'll continue in single crochets all the way around without any increases. So we're going to go to, this will be our 3rd, 2nd, 1st. So we're going to single crochet all the way to this stitch right here. Alright, now we're going to make 1 in the next 3 stitches. Second stitch. And then that 3rd one. Going to work around to, stitch will be our 3rd, 2nd, 1st, so we're going to work to this stitch right here. right, now we're going to make 3. 1, 2, 3. And the last one. All right, you should have 46 stitches. So if you count all the way around, and I always count the one that's sitting up on my hook. So you should have 46 stitches. Count and make sure you're on track. Okay, from here we're doing single crochet stitches all around the 46 stitches until the bag is about 6.5 inches. Or as long as you want it. Okay, so we're at about 6.5 inches, and the way that I measure is I stretch it out just a little bit because when you use it, it'll grow a bit, and I like to have the measurement based on the growth. So, stretch it out, measure from the top stitch right here, and it's roughly 6.5 inches. If it's a little over, a little under, that's totally okay. You can always add a little bit or take another stitch out, whatever you want to do. From here, I want to make sure that I'm roughly halfway through the side, going from no tail to tail. So this side, we rounded the corner, finished that whole round, and then went around halfway to the tail end. And from here, we're going to make sure it's really flat, and we want to count out the stitches for the handles. So the way that I do that is I match up stitches, so just as long as they're like really flat here. We're gonna pair off. So 2 right here, 1 on this side, 1 on that side, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And we're going to mark these with a stitch marker. Just like that. Right here. And then I'm going to just double count, double check that these, when it's laid flat, that these match up directly and that we have 14 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's going to be our handle on this side, and then we're going to do the same thing on this side. So we're going to make sure that it's really flat and pair and pair. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. double count because I might have messed that up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I gotta just move this one back one. So making sure that each of the stitches match up like that. The reason why I don't count which stitch these are in, like in the round, is because some people might consider this stitch to be number 1 or this stitch to be number 1, and if you aren't on the same number stitch, you might end up with like one over here and one over here, and then when you have your bag, it's really wonky. So I always lay it flat and count stitches like that. And you just always make sure that when it's laid flat, that they line up. So from here, we're going to crochet past this green one all the way to the pink. Just single crochet. So we're going to go in the one with the stitch marker, and I just like to keep it there. Continue past. Right, and now we're at the one with the stitch marker, so we're going to do a single crochet in the one with the stitch marker, and from here we're going to match to the one with the stitch marker on this side, so the one above it, which would be right here, and we're going to put our hook in as if we're doing a regular stitch. So just a single crochet into that one, and that connects each side. So from here, we're going to work in these 14 stitches until this measures about 6.5 inches. Okay, so now we're going to start the second handle. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually go to the stitch that's right before the stitch marker, so this one right here. And I'm going to hold the tail against the bag so that it's tight, and then I'm going to loop that over. And in that stitch right there, I'm going to do what is called a slip stitch. So I'm just going to pull it through like that. And then in the stitch with the stitch marker, I'm going to do a single crochet. I'm still holding that tail so that it's not pulling through. And then we're going to continue along this round corner to that next stitch. And now I'm going to make a single crochet in that stitch with the stitch marker. And then we're going to turn and go to the stitch with that stitch marker. So that's going to be this wonky looking one. And you're going to have to hold your tail so that it doesn't go anywhere. So you're going to pick up one side and then the second side of that V and do a single crochet in this stitch. And now we're going to continue around here until this measures about 4.5 inches. Okay, from here, you're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna leave a much longer tail. So I want it to be pretty long. And this is because we're going to weave in each side together like that. So I'm gonna pull this through. And then we're going to match up the sides. So again, you're gonna want it really, really flat. And I'm gonna curve it in. And we're going to match the bottom to the bottom, just like that. And here I'm gonna hold them together with a stitch marker, just so that they line up. And then we're going to take a needle like this to sew all of it together. So I'm going to hold those together, making sure that those two stitches that are in the stitch marker stay together, and then kind of line up the following stitches. You can kind of see that each of these stitches that we ended on line up, they match together. So we're going to hold those together, and we're going to take this really long end and thread it through so that we can sew it together. And how I do it is I start right to left and I go through both sides of the V on this side and then both sides of the V on the next side. And then I just pull through. And then I'm going to go over and go into the next V, which will be this one. Go right to left under both V's and pull together. I'm going to just make sure that that gets over. And then the next V, right side to left side. Pull together, and then you can take the stitch marker out at this point since we just went through that one. And then we're just going to go stitch by stitch. So left or right to left. That tail out of the loop and pull. And then next one, right to left. Now we're kind of reaching the point where it's a little bit harder to hold these together. So what we're going to do is flip it over, kind of, and you just want to make sure that you're still lining up stitch to stitch. So these next two stitches right here are going to match. And you want to be going the same side that you were going. So you're going right to left. So you're going to go on the outside to the inside on the right side. And then on the left side, you're going to go inside to outside. And then you're going to do the same thing, outside to inside on the right, inside to outside on the left. Outside to inside, inside to outside. Outside to inside, inside to outside. And then outside to inside, inside to outside. And then one more. Outside to inside. This is where the knot is, so it's going to be a little bit wonky. And then inside to outside. And now from here, see, it's not a perfect seam. This is where we're going to have that knot. From here, you want to weave this end in, and I just like to go kind of in stitches and try to make it look as seamless as possible so that you're not really seeing it. See, like, you don't really see that. It kind of blends in with like the stitches that we've made. And you want to weave in a lot of this and just kind of go down and around and that sort of thing so that this whole seam doesn't come apart. The more that you weave it in, the sturdier it's going to be. So you want to weave in much of the tail. this. Kind of pull it so that it's tucked in there, and you can kind of, if you need to, shove it to the other side. And then we're going to weave in this tail here. Same thing, just weave in as much as possible. And then you can either cut it or just tuck it to the inside of the handle. Okay. So now we're going to do the knot part. So we're going to take our string that's connected to our skein, and we're going to do another slip knot. So wrap around, push through, and pull, and then put our hook on. And we're going to chain 6. So wrap around, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're just gonna work in single crochets across these, and then turn around, and we're gonna do that until it can wrap around the handle. So go into that next one right here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, and pull tight. And then we're going to turn, and we're going to go into that first V right there. That's like the very first one. So push through both. And then make sure to go into this last V. And we're going to turn again. And I always like to make sure that I wrap the tail around so that kind of creates like a little bit of a nicer edge. We're going to go in the first one. Okay, so now that this measures about 6.5 inches, we're going to cut a tail, and we want this to be long so that we can sew it into the bag. We'll pull through. And then tighten. And then we're going to take the bag and we're just going to loop it around right where that seam is. And this is, so if this is laid flat, it's a little bit shorter than around the bag. But I like when it's a little bit tighter because it creates more of a knot effect when the bag folds like that. And what we're going to do with this knot is we're going to do the same thing where we match up end to end. We're just going to sew in the stitches and then it'll be all done. So we're going to go over this stitch and then right side outside to left side inside. And right. So if we turn it this way, we'll be doing it exactly how we were doing the other bag. We'll go right to left, inside to outside, or outside to inside, inside to outside. And now I'm going to sew in the ends, but I'm only going to do it on the knot. Make sure that you're not doing it into the bag. Tuck or cut and then tuck that into the inside of the bag. And then with this tail, we're going to kind of close that little gap that's right there. So we're going to go to the stitch right there and pull tight so that it closes that up, and then we'll weave it in, making sure we don't go into the bag, just the knot. And I'm going to cut. Oops. And then I'll just tuck that. And then from here, we're going to just twist this so it's that seam is on the bottom. Like that. Make sure it's over your seam, off to the side. we can take our stitch markers out. You can do this earlier if you want to. And then we're going to weave in the rest of our ends. If possible, I do like to go push to the inside. And then weave in on the inside. And there's your bag. You can kind of manipulate the handle. I like it to be flat like that for when I hold it, but you can put it flat the other way. So that's like that, which makes it look nicer when it's laying down. And now you've finished your bag.